The coffee cup shattered before Mia Campano could stop it. Crystal shards exploded across the marble floor of Bologna's café, the sound sharp enough to slice through the gentle morning chatter. Mia's breath caught. That wasn't just any cup. That was the cup, the vintage Italian porcelain Sebastian Stone kept for VIP clients. The one he'd specifically told her never to touch during her first shift 3 weeks ago. The one she'd just destroyed. Her hands trembled as she dropped to her knees, desperately gathering the pieces, as if she could somehow glue back together more than just broken china. Her rent was already 2 months overdue. The eviction notice had come yesterday. This job, this terrible, exhausting, barely minimum wage job, was the only thing standing between her and the street. Don't move. The voice cut through the cafe, like winter frost. Sebastian Stone stood 10 feet away, his slate-gray eyes fixed on the crime scene at her feet, his jaw set in that terrifying line she'd come to recognize. 6'2" of tailored fury in a Tom Ford suit that probably cost more than her entire year's salary. Hey there, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the channel. Or, if you're new here, welcome to a story that's about to grip you by the heartstrings and not let go. I'm so glad you're here. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. I love connecting with you all. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button because, trust me, you won't want to miss how this unfolds. Now, back to Mia, whose world is about to shatter harder than that cup. Mia forced herself to look up at him, her dark curls falling across her face, barely hiding the exhaustion bruising the skin under her eyes. She'd worked a double shift at the diner across town before coming here, slept 4 hours on her friend's couch, and hadn't eaten anything but stale crackers in 2 days. The cafe spun slightly around her. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'll pay for it." You'll pay for it?" Sebastian's laugh was sharp, humorless. "That cup was worth more than you make in 3 months here. Do you have any idea what you've just done?"
Yes.
She'd just destroyed her last chance. The other waitress, Laura Montana, appeared at Mia's elbow with a dustpan, her expression sympathetic but helpless. The morning customers had gone quiet, watching the scene unfold like uncomfortable theater. Mia felt their eyes on her, the broke girl who couldn't even hold a simple cup, who didn't belong in a place this elegant. Sebastian stepped closer, and Mia caught the scent of expensive cologne and coffee beans. Everything about him screamed privilege. The Italian leather shoes, the watch that could have fed her for a year, the absolute certainty in his posture that the world would bend to his will, because it always had. "My office," he said quietly.
Now.
Mia's heart hammered against her ribs. This was it.
Fired.
Again. The 3rd job in 2 months, and this time it would break her. The thought of calling her mother, of admitting defeat, of proving right everyone who'd said she'd never make it in the city. She stood on shaking legs, smoothing down the black uniform that hung loose on her frame. She'd lost weight she couldn't afford to lose. As she followed Sebastian through the cafe toward the back office, her mind raced through impossible calculations. Maybe she could sell her grandmother's ring, the only thing of value she owned. Maybe she could.
Wait.
Her grandmother. Something flickered in her memory, a conversation from years ago, before the cancer took Nana Campano. Something about property, about taking care of you when I'm gone, about lawyers and papers, but that had never materialized. After Nana died, there'd been nothing. Just grief and medical bills, and the slow dissolution of everything Mia thought she'd inherit. Sebastian held open the office door, gesturing her inside with barely controlled irritation. The room was all dark wood and leather, dominated by a massive desk covered in spreadsheets and architectural plans. Through the window behind him, the morning sun illuminated the street outside, her street, the neighborhood where she'd grown up, now gentrified beyond recognition. "Do you know what this cafe means to my family?" Sebastian began, his back to her as he stared out that window. "My father gave me one job. One chance to prove I could run something without his name doing the work for me. And in 3 weeks, you've been late 4 times, mixed up 6 orders, and now destroyed a piece that belonged to my grandmother." Mia's throat tightened. She wanted to tell him about her grandmother, About working 3 jobs, about the eviction notice and the empty stomach and the bone-deep exhaustion that made her clumsy. But men like Sebastian Stone didn't care about stories like hers. She was just another expendable employee. "I'm sorry," she managed again, hating how small her voice sounded. He turned to face her, and for just a moment, something flickered in those cold eyes, something almost like recognition? Curiosity? But it vanished as quickly as it appeared. "Sorry doesn't." A knock interrupted him. His assistant, a severe woman in her 50s, poked her head in. "Mr. Stone, there's someone here from Whitmore and Associates. Says it's urgent. Something about the building's deed." Sebastian frowned. "I didn't schedule anything with the lawyers." "He says it can't wait." The assistant's eyes flicked to Mia, then back to Sebastian. "He's asking for a Ms. Campano." The world tilted. Mia's pulse roared in her ears. "What?" Sebastian's expression shifted from irritation to sharp interest. "Why would the building's lawyers be asking for my waitress?" The assistant stepped fully into the room, and Mia saw she was holding a manila envelope, thick with documents. He wouldn't say. Just that it concerns the estate of Loretta Campano and the property located at. She glanced at the papers. 255 Bologna Street. This building. The blood drained from Mia's face. Loretta Campano.
Dana.
This building. There must be some mistake. Mia breathed, but even as she said it, fragments were clicking together in her mind. Nana's mysterious meetings with lawyers. The way she'd always walked past this very building, touching the brick like a secret. The hushed phone calls about making sure Mia gets what's hers. Sebastian was staring at her now, really seeing her for perhaps the first time since she'd started working here. "Your grandmother owned property on this street?" I don't know. She never said. But what if she had? What if all those cryptic promises meant something real? The assistant held out the envelope. "The lawyer insisted I give this directly to Ms. Campano. He said the contents would explain everything." Mia's hands shook as she reached for it, her fingers brushing against paper that felt like it held the weight of destiny. She could feel Sebastian's eyes boring into her, could sense his confusion shifting into something more dangerous, suspicion. Inside that envelope might be nothing. A mistake. Old papers meaning nothing. Or inside that envelope might be the answer to every prayer she'd whispered into her pillow at night. She broke the seal, and Sebastian moved closer, close enough that she could feel the heat of him, smell that expensive cologne mixed now with something sharper, adrenaline maybe. His world tilting too. Mia pulled out the first page, and the words swam before her eyes as she tried to make sense of legal terminology and official stamps and
There.
one line that made her heart stop completely. "Hereby confirm that Mia Loretta Campano is the sole heir and rightful owner of the property located at 255 Bologna Street, including all commercial enterprises contained therein." The paper slipped from her numb fingers. Sebastian caught it, his reflexes quick, his eyes scanning the page she'd just read. She watched his face transform, shock, disbelief, anger, and something else she couldn't name. When he looked up at her, his voice was barely a whisper. "You own this building." It wasn't a question. And Mia, the broke waitress he'd been about to fire, the girl he'd treated like she was invisible, suddenly realized she wasn't looking up at her boss anymore. He was standing in her café. But if she owned this building, why had no one told her? And who had been collecting rent all this time? The lawyer's name was Vincent Corleone, and everything about him made Mia's skin crawl. He sat across from her in Sebastian's office. Her office, she reminded herself with a dizzying rush, with the smooth confidence of a man who'd never missed a meal or worried about rent. Mid-50s, silver hair slicked back, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He'd been talking for 10 minutes, and Mia still couldn't shake the feeling that every word was a lie wrapped in legal terminology. "Your grandmother was a very private woman," Vincent said, spreading more documents across the desk. "She wanted to ensure the inheritance was handled delicately." Delicately. Sebastian's voice cut through the room like a blade. He stood by the window, arms crossed, radiating barely controlled fury. "She's been working minimum wage in her own building for 3 weeks. You call that delicate?" Vincent's smile tightened. Mr. Stone, I understand you're upset, but this doesn't actually concern you. Like hell it doesn't. My family has been paying rent to your firm for 5 years. Someone's been collecting money that apparently should have gone to her. Sebastian gestured at Mia, who felt caught between them like a deer in headlights. Mia forced herself to focus, to push through the exhaustion and shock fogging her brain. Why didn't anyone tell me? Her voice came out stronger than she felt. My grandmother died 3 years ago. Where have you been? Something flickered across Vincent's face. Annoyance, maybe, or calculation. The estate was complicated. There were debts to settle, legal requirements to fulfill. We've been managing the property in trust until... Until what? Mia leaned forward. Until I was desperate enough to take a waitressing job in my own café? For the first time since entering the room, Vincent's composure cracked. His jaw tightened. Miss Campano, I assure you, everything was done according to your grandmother's wishes. If you'd like to review the complete estate documents, I can arrange. I'd like to review them now, Mia said. The words surprised her as much as they seemed to surprise Vincent. But somewhere beneath the shock and confusion, something else was rising in her chest, something hot and fierce that tasted like 3 years of struggle, of sleeping on couches and skipping meals and wondering why God had abandoned her when Nana promised she'd be taken care of. Anger. She was angry. That's not possible today, Vincent said smoothly. The files are at the main office. But I can have everything couriered over by... Tomorrow morning, Sebastian interrupted. His eyes met Mia's, and she saw her own suspicion reflected there. 9 a.m. Every document related to the Campano estate and this property. If you're really acting in Ms. Campano's interest, you won't have a problem with that. Vincent stood, his smile now razor-thin. Of course. Though I should mention, Mr. Stone, that your lease is actually up for renewal next month. Perhaps Ms. Campano will want to renegotiate terms. The threat hung in the air like poison. After Vincent left, silence filled the office. Mia stared at the papers scattered across the desk. Her name, her grandmother's name, legal words that meant her entire life had been a lie. Or a secret. Or something worse. Why didn't you tell me you were Loretta Campano's granddaughter? Sebastian's question was quiet, but Mia heard the accusation underneath. She looked up at him. This man who'd treated her like she was invisible for 3 weeks, who'd paid her barely enough to survive while apparently paying thousands to rent her building. Why would I? She heard the edge in her own voice. Would it have mattered? Would you have been less angry about the late shifts if you knew my name? His jaw worked. That's not. You didn't even know my last name until 10 minutes ago. Mia stood, her legs unsteady, but her spine straight. I was just the new waitress. The one who wasn't fast enough, wasn't good enough, wasn't worth a second glance. Sebastian flinched, and Mia felt a savage satisfaction. But it faded quickly, replaced by something heavier. Sadness. Bone-deep exhaustion. She sank back into the chair, all the fight draining out of her. My grandmother raised me, she said quietly. My mother left when I was 6. Dad was never in the picture. Nana was everything. She owned a small apartment in this neighborhood, worked as a seamstress. We never had much, but we had enough. Mia's fingers traced the edge of the deed. When she got sick, the medical bills destroyed us. I dropped out of college to take care of her. Worked 3 jobs to pay for treatments that didn't work. And when she died, her throat closed. Even after 3 years, the grief was a physical thing, sharp and present. When she died, Mia continued, I thought that was it. The apartment was mortgaged to pay the hospital. I had nothing except her ring and her recipe book and all these memories of her promising me that everything would be okay, that she'd made sure I'd be taken care of. She looked up at Sebastian, willing him to understand. I thought she meant spiritually, like she'd taught me to be strong or something. I never imagined that she literally owned a building in what's now the most expensive neighborhood in the city, Sebastian finished. Mia laughed, but it came out broken. I've been sleeping on my friend's couch for 2 months. I ate crackers for dinner last night, and apparently I own prime real estate. For the first time, Sebastian's expression softened. He moved from the window, pulling out the chair next to hers instead of sitting behind the desk, a subtle shift that made them feel less like adversaries. "That lawyer is hiding something," he said. "I know. The property management, the rent collection, the convenient timing of him showing up right after you broke that cup." Sebastian ran a hand through his dark hair, musing the perfect styling. It made him look younger, more human. "Someone's been profiting from your inheritance." Mia's stomach churned. "How much rent have you been paying?" 12,000 a month. The number punched the air from her lungs. 12,000. Every month. For 5 years. While she'd been scraping together enough for bus fare. "Where did that money go?" she whispered. "That's what we need to find out." Sebastian met her eyes, and Mia saw something there she hadn't expected. Determination.
Fire.
"Your grandmother left you this building for a reason. Someone kept it from you for a reason. We need to know why."
We.
The word felt strange. An hour ago, he'd been ready to fire her. Sebastian's mouth quirked. Not quite a smile, but close. "You own the building, but I've been running the cafe for 6 months. My family's reputation is tied to this place. If there's fraud involved, it affects both of us."
He paused.
"Besides, you're going to need help. Legal help. Financial help. Someone who knows how to deal with sharks like Vincent Corleone." Mia wanted to argue, to tell him she could handle it herself. But she was so tired of pretending to be strong when she felt like she was drowning. "Why would you help me?" The question hung between them. Sebastian was quiet for a long moment, his gray eyes studying her with an intensity that made her skin warm. "Because I know what it's like to be underestimated," he finally said. "My father is Charles Stone. Stone Industries. Maybe you've heard of it." Mia had. Everyone had. The billionaire developer who'd transformed half the city's skyline. "He gave me this cafe as a test," Sebastian continued, and there was something bitter in his voice now. "Said if I couldn't make a small business profitable, I'd never be worthy of the real family empire. Every month, he gets reports. Every mistake I make gets documented. And if I fail..." He didn't finish, but Mia heard the fear underneath the words. The same fear she'd been living with, of not being enough, of losing everything, of proving right everyone who doubted you. "So we're both trying to prove ourselves," she said softly. "Looks like it." Their eyes met, and something shifted in the air between them. A tentative understanding. An alliance forged in mutual desperation. The office door burst open. Laura Montana, the other waitress, stood in the doorway, her dark eyes wide. "Sebastian, we've got a problem. The espresso machine just died, there's a line out the door, and Channel 7 News just called. They heard a rumor about the cafe changing ownership and want to do a story." "What?" Mia and Sebastian said in unison. "How did the news already know?" Sebastian demanded. Laura shook her head. "No idea, but they're sending a crew this afternoon. They're calling it a Cinderella story. Local girl inherits building from secret billionaire grandmother." Mia felt the blood drain from her face. "My grandmother wasn't a billionaire. She was a seamstress. This doesn't make sense." "None of this makes sense," Sebastian muttered. He stood, slipping back into the controlled, commanding presence she recognized from the last 3 weeks. "Laura, call the machine repair company. Tell them it's an emergency." "Mia, you should." He stopped, seeming to realize he couldn't order her around anymore. Mia stood too, her mind racing. News crews. Public attention. Questions she couldn't answer about an inheritance she didn't understand. "I should get back to work," she said. Sebastian raised an eyebrow. "You own the building. You don't have to work the floor." "Yes, I do." Mia smoothed her apron, which suddenly felt less like a uniform and more like armor. "Because until we figure out what's really going on, I'm still just a waitress trying to survive. And I'm not giving Vincent Corleone or anyone else a reason to think I can't handle this." Something like respect flashed across Sebastian's face. "Okay. But tonight, after we close, we go through every document Vincent gave us. And tomorrow, we get the rest." "Tomorrow," Mia agreed. As she turned to leave, Sebastian's voice stopped her. "Mia?" She looked back. I'm sorry. For how I treated you. I should have. He seemed to struggle for words. You deserved better. The apology caught her off guard. She'd expected arrogance, maybe anger at the power shift. Not this quiet sincerity. Thank you, she managed. Outside the office, the café hummed with morning energy. Customers laughed over lattes, unaware that the exhausted waitress serving them owned the roof over their heads. Mia tied her apron tighter and picked up an order pad, her hands steadier now despite everything. Somewhere in this building were answers. About her grandmother, about the missing money, about why a simple seamstress owned prime real estate and kept it secret. But first, table 6 needed a cappuccino. And Mia Campano, broke waitress and apparently secret property owner, had work to do. What she didn't know was that Vincent Corleone was already making calls that would ensure she never saw the full truth. And that the man watching her from across the street had been paid very well to make sure she didn't start asking the right questions. The break-in happened at 2:47 a.m. Mia woke to her phone vibrating violently on the milk crate she used as a nightstand in her friend's cramped apartment. The screen showed Sebastian's name, and her heart lurched before she even answered. Someone broke into the café, he said without preamble. His voice was tight, controlled, but she could hear the edge underneath. The police are here. You need to come now. She was dressed and out the door in 3 minutes. The November air bit through her thin jacket as she ran the 6 blocks to Bologna Street. Red and blue lights painted the brick facade of her building. God, that still felt surreal, and a small crowd of insomniacs and curious neighbors clustered on the sidewalk. Mia pushed through them, her breath coming in visible clouds. Sebastian stood by the cafe entrance talking to a police officer, still wearing the dark jeans and Henley he'd had on when she left at closing. Had he been here all night, working on the books like he said he would? His eyes found hers across the crowd, and something in her chest tightened at the relief that flashed across his face. Miss Campano, the officer said as she approached, consulting his notepad. You're listed as the property owner? Yes. The words still felt foreign. What happened? Someone forced the back entrance around 2:30. Mr. Stone's security system alerted him. When he arrived, the perpetrator had already fled. Mia's stomach dropped. Did they take anything? Sebastian's jaw was tight. Not from the cafe. They went straight for the office. The office, where they'd left all the documents from Vincent Corleone. Mia didn't wait for permission. She ducked under the police tape and ran inside, ignoring the officer's protest. The cafe was a mess, chairs overturned, papers scattered, the register hanging open and empty. But Sebastian was right. This felt perfunctory, like camouflage. The real destruction was in the office. Every drawer had been yanked open, contents dumped across the floor. The file cabinet hung askew, folders torn and scattered. Mia's hands shook as she stepped over the debris, searching for the manila envelope Vincent had given them.
Gone.
All the inheritance documents, Sebastian said quietly from the doorway. He'd followed her in, the officer close behind. The deed, the trust papers, your grandmother's will. Everything. But you said you were going through the books. Mia turned to him, her mind racing. Why weren't you in here when they broke in? I was. Sebastian's expression was grim. I went to the storage room to get older financial records. I was gone maybe 10 minutes. When I came back, the back door was open and... He gestured at the chaos. 10 minutes. Perfectly timed. Someone was watching, Mia breathed. They waited until you left the office. The officer frowned. Do you have reason to believe this was targeted? Not just a random burglary? Mia and Sebastian exchanged glances. How did you explain to a cop that someone might be covering up inheritance fraud? That a woman who'd worked as a seamstress somehow owned valuable property, and that the lawyer managing her estate seemed more interested in hiding information than revealing it? We're not sure, Sebastian said carefully. But Ms. Campano only learned about the inheritance yesterday. This feels like an odd coincidence. We'll need a complete list of what was taken, the officer said. And I'll need statements from both of you. The next hour crawled by in a haze of questions and documentation. By the time the police left, the sky was starting to lighten with the gray promise of dawn. Mia sat on the floor of the destroyed office, her back against the desk, too numb to cry. "I made copies." She looked up. Sebastian stood in the doorway holding a folder, something almost like a smile on his exhausted face. "What?" "The documents. Before you left tonight, yesterday, I guess, I scanned everything Vincent gave us. Uploaded them to a secure cloud server." He sat down beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "My father taught me to never trust lawyers. Especially lawyers who show up out of nowhere with life-changing news." Mia could have kissed him. The thought came out of nowhere and shocked her so much she felt heat rise to her cheeks. She looked away quickly, hoping he couldn't see in the dim light. "Can I see them?" she asked. Sebastian pulled out his phone, pulling up the scanned files. Together, they scrolled through pages of legal terminology and official stamps. Most of it was incomprehensible to Mia, but certain phrases jumped out. Property acquired by Loretta Campano in 1987. Mia had been born in 1995. Her grandmother had owned this building for 8 years before Mia even existed. Held in trust for sole heir Mia Loretta Campano upon reaching age 25 or upon the death of Loretta Campano, whichever occurs first. Mia was 26 now. She'd been eligible for this inheritance for a year. Trust management assigned to Whitmore and Associates, with Vincent Corleone as primary executor. There. Sebastian zoomed in on a section near the end. "Look at this." Mia squinted at the screen. It was a financial document, columns of numbers that made her head swim. But one figure stood out. $2.3 million. "What is that?" "Accumulated rent," Sebastian said slowly, his finger tracing down the page. "Collected from various tenants over the past 15 years. Your grandmother owned the whole building, not just the café space. There are 3 apartments upstairs, a law office on the 2nd floor, and a bookstore on the corner." Mia's mouth went dry. "That money should have come to me. According to this, it's been held in trust by Whitmore and Associates for estate management and property maintenance." Sebastian's voice dripped with skepticism. "But I've seen the actual maintenance records for this building. The landlord, whoever we've been dealing with through the property management company, has done the bare minimum. Definitely not $2.3 million worth of work." "So where did the money go?" Before Sebastian could answer, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his expression darkened. "It's an email from Vincent Corleone." Mia's pulse quickened. "What does it say?" Sebastian opened it, and they read together. "Dear Mr. Stone and Ms. Campano, I was deeply disturbed to hear about the break-in at your establishment. These are dangerous times, and I worry for Ms. Campano's safety as she navigates this unexpected inheritance. Given the circumstances, I believe it would be prudent for Ms. Campano to consider my firm's offer to purchase the property. We're prepared to offer $1.5 million, significantly above market value, which would allow her financial security without the burden of property management or the apparent risks that come with it. This offer is time-sensitive and expires Friday at 5 p.m. I encourage Ms. Campano to consider carefully. Accidents happen to those who aren't prepared for the responsibilities of wealth. Regards, Vincent Corleone." The threat was barely veiled. "Is he?" Mia's voice shook. "Is he threatening me?" Sebastian's hand found hers, his grip warm and solid. "He's scared. Which means we're onto something." The email came at 4:32 a.m., Mia noticed, right after the break-in was reported. "He knew," Sebastian said flatly. "Either he was watching or he ordered it himself." The pieces were clicking together in Mia's exhausted brain. Vincent shows up the moment she's about to be fired, conveniently revealing an inheritance that's been hidden for years. That same night, someone breaks in and steals the documents. Hours later, Vincent sends a buyout offer with a deadline and a warning. "He's trying to scare me into selling," she said. "For $1.5 million when the property is worth at least 3 times that, based on location alone." Sebastian scrolled through his phone. "And if there's really $2.3 million sitting in trust somewhere, you'd be losing money." Mia pulled her hand from his and stood, pacing the small office. Her mind was spinning, fear and anger warring inside her chest. Someone had stolen from her, stolen years of her life that could have been different. College degrees she could have finished. Her grandmother's medical bills she could have paid without destroying herself. And now they wanted to silence her with what probably seemed like a fortune to a broke waitress, but was actually pennies on the dollar. "I'm not selling." The words came out fierce, surprising her with their strength. Sebastian stood too, his gray eyes intense in the growing light. "Vincent won't like that." "I don't care what Vincent likes." Mia felt something hardening inside her, something that tasted like her grandmother's stubborn Sicilian pride. "Nana left me this building for a reason. She survived immigrating to this country with nothing. She raised me alone. She fought cancer for 2 years and never complained once." Her voice broke, but she pushed through. "I'm not going to let some corrupt lawyer profit off her death. I want to know where that $2.3 million went. I want to know why she bought this building. And I want to know who the hell broke into my café." My café. The words felt right now. Sebastian moved closer, and Mia could see the exhaustion etched into his handsome features, could see something else too. Admiration, maybe. Respect. "Okay," he said quietly. "Then we fight. But we need help. Real help. A lawyer we can trust, a forensic accountant, maybe a private investigator." "I can't afford any of that," Mia said bitterly. "I can." She stared at him. "Why would you?" "Because it's the right thing to do." Sebastian ran a hand through his hair, musing it even further. "And because if Vincent is embezzling from your grandmother's estate, he might be doing it to others. My father has dealt with men like this. They're parasites who prey on grief and confusion." He stepped closer, close enough that Mia had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. "And because in the 3 weeks you've worked here, I've watched you show up early, stay late, smile at rude customers, and work harder than anyone I've ever employed, all while apparently living on crackers and sleeping on a couch."
His voice softened.
"You deserve better, Mia. Let me help you get it." The sincerity in his eyes made her chest ache. This man who'd been a cold, demanding boss just yesterday was now offering to fund her fight against a powerful law firm. It didn't make sense. She should be suspicious. But God, she was so tired of fighting alone. "Okay," she whispered. "Help me." The relief on Sebastian's face was palpable. He pulled out his phone again. "I'm calling my father's attorney, Daniel Queenan. He's ruthless and he hates corruption. If there's dirt on Vincent Corleone, Daniel will find it." As Sebastian made the call, Mia wandered to the window. The sun was rising over Bologna Street, painting the buildings in shades of gold and pink. Somewhere in this neighborhood, her grandmother had walked these sidewalks, touched these bricks, built something for Mia's future. And somewhere, Vincent Corleone was planning his next move. Behind her, Sebastian was talking in low, urgent tones. "Yes, I know it's early. This can't wait. Embezzlement, possibly fraud. I need you here today." Mia's reflection stared back at her from the window glass, dark circles under her eyes, wrinkled uniform, hair escaping its ponytail. She still looked like a broke waitress. But underneath, she felt something changing, hardening, sharpening into a weapon. Sebastian ended his call. "Daniel can meet us at 10. He's bringing a forensic accountant and someone from his investigative team." "What do I need to do?" "Tell them everything you remember about your grandmother. Any conversations about money, property, her past. Anything that might give us a clue about why she bought this building or what Vincent is hiding." Mia nodded, her mind already sifting through memories. "And Mia?" Sebastian's voice made her turn. He stood silhouetted against the doorway, backlit by the café's overhead lights. "Don't go anywhere alone. If Vincent was willing to break in here, he might come after me directly," Mia finished. Their eyes met across the destroyed office, and Mia saw her own fear reflected in Sebastian's gaze. But she saw something else too, determination.
Partnership.
Maybe even the beginning of something more. "I should go change," she said. "Get ready for this meeting. I'll drive you. And then we're going shopping." She blinked. Shopping. You're about to go to war with a powerful law firm. You need armor. His mouth quirked. In this world, armor looks like $1,000 suit. Mia wanted to argue about the expense, about accepting more help. But Sebastian was right. She couldn't walk into a lawyer's office looking like she'd slept in her clothes, even though she basically had. Okay, she said again. As they walked through the café toward the front door, Mia paused by the counter where she'd broken the vintage cup just yesterday. Was it really only yesterday? It felt like a lifetime ago. Sebastian? That cup I broke. How much do I owe you? He looked at her for a long moment, something unreadable in his expression. Consider my apology for being a terrible boss. We're even. We're not even close to even, Mia said. But thank you. Outside, the November morning was crisp and clear. A few early risers walked past with coffee cups and dogs. The street looked peaceful, normal. But Mia couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. As Sebastian's sleek black Audi pulled away from the curb, she glanced back at her building, and saw a shadow move in one of the upstairs windows. One of the apartments. The ones that were supposedly rented. Her blood ran cold. Sebastian, she said quietly. Who lives in the apartments upstairs? He frowned, clearly not expecting the question. I'm not sure. I've only ever dealt with the cafe space. Why? Because someone's watching us from the third-floor window. Sebastian's gaze snapped to the rearview mirror, but by the time he looked, the shadow was gone. Neither of them knew that the man in that window was the same man who'd broken into the office. Or that Vincent Corleone had just made a call to someone who specialized in making problems disappear. Or that the real reason Loretta Campano had bought that building 35 years ago was buried in a safety deposit box in a bank that had been demolished 10 years earlier, along with the evidence of a crime that powerful people had paid millions to keep hidden. The game had just begun. And Mia Campano had no idea how deep the lies went. The conference room at Queenan and Associates smelled like leather and old money. Mia sat in a chair that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe, her old wardrobe anyway. The navy suit Sebastian had insisted on buying her that morning fit perfectly, transforming her from broke waitress to someone who might actually own a building in the city's most expensive neighborhood. She still felt like an imposter. Daniel Queenan was 60-something with silver hair and sharp blue eyes that seemed to catalog every detail. He'd listened to their story without interruption for 20 minutes, his expression giving away nothing. Now he sat back, fingers steepled, studying Mia with an intensity that made her want to squirm. Miss Campano, he said finally, your grandmother was a very clever woman. Mia blinked. What? Daniel turned his laptop around, showing a screen full of property records. Loretta Campano didn't just own your building. She owned 4 others in the same neighborhood, all purchased between 1987 and 1995. The room tilted. That's impossible, Mia breathed. She was a seamstress. She lived in a tiny apartment. We could barely afford the medical bills, Daniel finished gently.
Yes.
But before she got sick, your grandmother was quietly building a real estate empire. Sebastian leaned forward. How does a seamstress afford 5 buildings? That's the question, isn't it? Daniel's assistant, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Sullivan, placed a folder on the table. We pulled every record we could find on Loretta Campano. Birth certificate, immigration papers, marriage license, death certificate. And we found something interesting. Patricia opened the folder, revealing a faded photograph. A young Loretta Campano stood in front of a jewelry store, her arm around a handsome man in an expensive suit. Your grandmother was married, Patricia said quietly, in 1985, to a man named Antonio Benedetto. Mia's world lurched. That's not possible. My grandmother never married. She raised my mother alone and then she raised me. According to New York records, Loretta and Antonio were married for exactly 18 months. Then he died in 1987. Car accident on the Henry Hudson Parkway. Patricia slid another document across the table. 2 months later, Loretta purchased her first building. In cash. The implication hung in the air like smoke. You think her husband left her money, Sebastian said. I think Antonio Benedetto was involved in something that generated significant cash flow, Daniel corrected. And I think when he died, that money went to his widow. Mia's hand shook as she picked up the photograph. Her grandmother looked so young, maybe 25. The same age Mia was when she was supposed to inherit. Was that coincidence? What kind of something? Mia asked, though part of her didn't want to know. Daniel and Patricia exchanged glances. The Benedetto family ran several legitimate businesses in the 80s, Daniel said carefully. Restaurants, import companies. But there were also rumors of less legitimate enterprises. You think my grandmother was married to a criminal. I think your grandmother was married to a man who moved in complicated circles. And I think when he died, she took the money and built something legitimate with it. Those buildings, Ms. Campano, are worth approximately $15 million now. Even in 1987, she would have needed at least $2 million in cash to acquire them. Mia felt sick. Her whole life, she'd thought she knew her grandmother. The quiet seamstress who went to church every Sunday, who taught Mia to cook traditional Sicilian recipes, who read her bedtime stories about saints and heroes. But apparently, Nana had secrets. Why did no one tell me about Antonio? Mia asked. My mother never mentioned.
She stopped.
Her mother, who'd left when Mia was 6 and never looked back. When was my mother born? Mia asked slowly. Patricia checked her notes. 1975, 10 years before Loretta married Antonio. So Antonio wasn't Mia's grandfather. And her mother would have been 12 when Loretta remarried, old enough to remember. I need to talk to my mother, Mia said. Sebastian's hand found hers under the table, his fingers warm and solid. The touch sent electricity up her arm, but more than that, it anchored her, reminded her she wasn't alone in this. We've already reached out, Daniel said. Her number is disconnected, but we have an address in Philadelphia. We can send someone.
No.
Mia's voice was firm. I'll go myself. Today. Mia, that might not be safe, Sebastian started. She's my mother. If anyone's going to ask her about Nana's secrets, it should be me. Mia turned to him, their faces close. She could see the concern in his gray eyes, could smell his cologne, could feel the warmth radiating from him. Come with me? Something flickered in Sebastian's expression, surprise, maybe, or pleasure that she'd asked. Of course. Daniel cleared his throat. Before you go chasing ghosts in Philadelphia, there's something else you need to know. We pulled the financial records for Whitmore and Associates. Vincent Corleone has been managing your grandmother's estate, but he's also been managing 4 other estates, all elderly widows, all with significant property holdings, all deceased within the last 10 years. And Mia's pulse quickened. And in every single case, the heirs either couldn't be located or sold the property to a shell corporation for well below market value. Patricia pulled up a chart on her laptop. That shell corporation is owned by a holding company, which is owned by another holding company, which is eventually owned by Vincent Corleone, Sebastian finished. And 2 partners, Daniel confirmed. We're still tracing the connections, but it looks like Vincent has been systematically defrauding estates for at least a decade. Your grandmother's properties are the biggest prize yet. $15 million is worth killing for. The word killing made Mia's blood run cold. You think Vincent might actually try to hurt me? I think Vincent is desperate, Daniel said bluntly. You were supposed to be another heir who couldn't be found. The fact that you literally walked into your own building and got hired as a waitress is phenomenally bad luck for him. He's been collecting rent on 5 properties for 3 years, telling the heirs fund that he can't locate you. If this goes public, he's facing serious prison time. We need to go to the police, Mia said. With what evidence? Patricia shook her head. Everything we have is circumstantial. We need something concrete, financial records showing where the money actually went, or communication between Vincent and his partners about the fraud. The break-in, Sebastian said suddenly. Mia, what if Vincent wasn't after the inheritance documents? What if he was after something else in that office? Something your grandmother left. Mia's mind raced. Like what? You said she was a seamstress. Did she work from home? Yes, in the apartment. but after she died, the landlord cleared everything out. I only got her personal items, jewelry, photo albums, her recipe book." Sebastian's eyes lit up. "Where's the recipe book?" "At my friend's apartment, with my other stuff." "Why?" "Because if I was your grandmother, and I had secrets worth $15 million, I wouldn't trust them to a lawyer or a bank." Sebastian stood, pulling Mia up with him. "I'd hide them somewhere personal. Somewhere only family would think to look." Understanding dawned. "The recipe book." "It's a long shot," Daniel cautioned. "But it's worth checking." 20 minutes later, Mia and Sebastian were climbing the stairs to her friend Kayla's fourth-floor walk-up. Mia's heart hammered as she unlocked the door with her spare key. Kayla was at work, the apartment silent except for the radiator's hiss. Mia's meager possessions were crammed into 2 duffel bags in the corner of the living room. She dropped to her knees, rifling through clothes and toiletries until her fingers closed around the worn leather cover of Nana's recipe book. Sebastian knelt beside her as she opened it with trembling hands. Pages of handwritten Italian recipes filled the book, Nana's careful script detailing her famous cavatelli, her Sunday gravy, her sfogliatelle. Mia's throat tightened. She'd learned to cook from this book, had made these recipes 100 times, trying to keep her grandmother alive through food and memory. "Look at the margins," Sebastian said softly. Mia focused. There, in faint pencil, barely visible, were numbers. Not measurements. Addresses. 255 Bologna Street, she read. "That's the cafe." "What are the others?" Mia flipped through pages, finding more addresses penciled beside recipes. 5 addresses total. The 5 buildings Nana had owned. But on the last page, tucked behind the recipe for pizzelle, was something else. A photograph, faded and creased. Mia pulled it out with shaking hands. It showed her grandmother, older than in the wedding photo, maybe 40, standing in front of a bank. First National Trust, according to the sign. And in Nana's hand was a key. "Safety deposit box," Sebastian breathed. Mia flipped the photo over. In Nana's handwriting, for Mia. "When you're ready." Box 447. First National Trust went bankrupt in 2008, Mia said, her heart sinking. The building was demolished. But safety deposit boxes are insured. Their contents would have been transferred to whatever bank bought the assets. Sebastian was already on his phone, searching. Here, First National's assets were acquired by Metropolitan Bank. They have a branch 3 blocks from the cafe. Hope fluttered in Mia's chest. "We should go now. We should be careful." Sebastian met her eyes. "If Vincent finds out about this box, he'll do whatever it takes to get there first." As if summoned by his name, Mia's phone rang. Unknown number. She answered on speaker. "Hello. Ms. Campano." Vincent Corleone's smooth voice filled the small apartment. "I hope you've had time to consider my offer. The clock is ticking." "I'm not selling," Mia said, her voice steadier than she felt. A pause. "Then, that's disappointing. I'd hate for anything unfortunate to happen to you. The city can be so dangerous for young women living alone." Sebastian's jaw clenched, his hand moving to take the phone, but Mia held firm. "Is that a threat, Mr. Corleone?" "Merely concern for your well-being. After all, accidents happen. Your grandmother's husband, for instance, such a tragic car accident. And your grandmother herself, all that medical debt when she owned millions in property. One has to wonder if she knew about her assets. If someone had been keeping secrets from her too." Mia's blood ran cold. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that knowledge can be dangerous, Ms. Campano. Some secrets are buried for good reason. I strongly suggest you take my offer and walk away while you still can." The line went dead. Mia's hands shook so badly, she nearly dropped the phone. Sebastian caught her, pulling her against his chest. She could feel his heart racing, could feel the anger radiating from him. "He as good as admitted he's been defrauding your grandmother," Sebastian said into her hair. "We need to record the next call. Get him to say something explicit." But Mia's mind was stuck on something else. Your grandmother herself. All that medical debt when she owned millions in property. "Sebastian," she whispered. "What if Nana didn't know? What if Vincent was hiding the properties from her too? All those years she was sick, struggling to pay bills, she could have sold one building and covered everything. But if she didn't know she owned them, then Vincent wasn't just stealing from you. He was stealing from her while she was dying. Sebastian's voice was dark with fury. The pieces were clicking into place, painting a horrifying picture. Vincent had somehow gained control of Nana's assets. Maybe when Antonio died, maybe later. He'd hidden the properties from her, let her believe she had nothing, let her die in debt and pain while he collected rent on $15 million worth of real estate. And then he'd tried to do the same to Mia. "I'm going to destroy him," Mia said quietly. Sebastian pulled back to look at her, his gray eyes intense. "We're going to destroy him. Together." The moment stretched between them, charged with more than just shared purpose. Mia was acutely aware of how close they were standing, of Sebastian's hand still on her arms, of the way he was looking at her like she was something rare and precious. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "Really?" Sebastian's thumb traced a gentle line on her arm. "At first, maybe because it was the right thing to do. Because I felt guilty for how I'd treated you." His voice dropped lower. "But now."
Now.
Mia's breath caught. "Now it's because I can't stand the thought of anyone hurting you. Because watching you fight back against Vincent, seeing your strength and courage, makes me wish I'd seen you from the beginning. Really seen you." He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. "You're extraordinary, Mia Campano." Her heart hammered. "Sebastian." A knock at the apartment door made them both jump apart. Mia's pulse spiked. "Kayla has a key." Sebastian moved in front of her, his body language protective. "Stay behind me." Another knock, harder this time. "Ms. Campano?" A woman's voice. "My name is Agent Maria Vidal with the FBI. I need to speak with you about Vincent Corleone." Mia and Sebastian stared at each other. The FBI. This was bigger than they'd thought. So much bigger. Agent Maria Vidal didn't look like Mia's idea of an FBI agent. She was mid-30s, sharp-featured, with dark hair pulled into a no-nonsense ponytail and eyes that had seen too much. She also carried a gun in a shoulder holster that became visible when she opened her jacket to show her credentials. "You can verify with the field office," Maria said, handing Sebastian a card while her gaze swept the small apartment with professional efficiency. "But we don't have much time. Vincent Corleone knows I'm in the city, and he's got enough friends in low places to disappear if he feels cornered." Mia's voice came out steadier than she felt. "How long have you been investigating him?" 3 years. But we've been investigating the people he works for much longer." Maria moved to the window, checking the street below before gesturing them away from it. "Miss Campano, what do you know about your grandmother's first husband?" "Just what we learned this morning. Antonio Benedetto. He died in 1987. "He was murdered in 1987, Maria corrected. Made to look like an accident. But Antonio was a forensic accountant who'd been cooperating with the FBI in a massive investigation into money laundering. He was killed 3 days before he was supposed to testify." The room spun. Mia grabbed the back of the couch for support. "The money he left your grandmother," Maria continued, "wasn't from criminal enterprise. It was clean money, Antonio's legitimate savings and life insurance. But more importantly, he left her something else. Evidence. Financial records documenting how certain crime families were washing money through real estate purchases in the 80s and 90s. Sebastian's hand found the small of Mia's back, steadying her. Why would he leave evidence to his wife instead of the FBI? Because he didn't trust that the FBI wasn't compromised. He was right to be paranoid. We later discovered that the lead agent on the case was taking payoffs. Maria's expression hardened. Antonio told Loretta that if anything happened to him, she should hide the evidence until she could give it to someone she trusted completely. He told her to build a normal life, stay invisible, and wait. Wait for what? Mia whispered. For the right time. For the right person. Maria's gaze locked onto Mia's. For you. The words hit like a physical blow. Your grandmother spent 30 years protecting those records, Maria said. She bought buildings with Antonio's money, lived quietly, raised your mother, and then you. She was waiting for you to be old enough, strong enough, smart enough to finish what Antonio started. Mia's legs gave out. She sank onto the couch, her mind reeling. Every memory of her grandmother was reshaping itself, the careful way Nana had taught her to be observant, to ask questions, to never take anyone's word at face value. The stories she told about saints who fought corruption and heroes who stood up to powerful men. She'd been training Mia for this. The safety deposit box, Sebastian said. Box 447 at First National Trust. That's where the evidence is. Maria's eyes sharpened. You know about the box? Mia held up the photograph with trembling hands. Maria studied it, something like relief crossing her face. Your grandmother was supposed to give this to you when you turned 25. We've been monitoring the situation, waiting for the inheritance to be released. But when Vincent buried the paperwork and you never came forward, we thought the evidence might be lost forever. The box was transferred to Metropolitan Bank, Sebastian said. We were going there when you arrived. We need to go now. Maria was already moving toward the door. Vincent doesn't know for certain what's in that box, but he suspects. That's why he broke into the cafe. He was looking for clues. If he figures out about Metropolitan Bank. Mia's phone rang. Daniel Queenan. Mia, where are you? The lawyer's voice was tight with urgency. We just got word that someone hacked into Metropolitan Bank's system an hour ago. They were searching safety deposit box records. Mia's blood turned to ice. Vincent. Probably. The bank is about to close for the day in 45 minutes. If you're going to get to that box, it has to be now. Maria was already ushering them toward the door. I've got a car downstairs. Move. The next 15 minutes were a blur of sirens and sharp turns through city traffic. Maria drove like she was in an action movie, her FBI credentials getting them through 2 red lights. In the back seat, Mia clutched the photograph while Sebastian made rapid-fire calls to Daniel and his father. Dad, I need you to call the director at Metropolitan Bank. Yes, right now. We need them to stay open because lives might depend on it. I can't explain over the phone, but trust me, this is bigger than the cafe. Mia watched the city fly past, her mind still struggling to process everything. Her grandmother, quiet, gentle Nana who'd smelled like lavender and garlic, had been protecting federal evidence for 3 decades, had lived in poverty when she could have sold the properties and been comfortable, all to keep a promise to a murdered husband. And she'd left it all to Mia. Why me? Mia asked quietly. I'm nobody. I'm just a waitress who can barely keep a job. Why would Nana think I could take on organized crime? Maria glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Your grandmother told my supervisor something once, about 5 years ago, when we made contact with her. She said, Mia has her grandfather's mind and her great-grandmother's spine. When the time comes, she'll know what to do. I don't know what to do, Mia whispered. Sebastian's hand found hers, threading their fingers together. You fired a corrupt boss today, metaphorically, he added with a slight smile. You stood up to Vincent's threats. You've survived 3 years of hell that would have broken most people. Mia, you're exactly the person for this. Their eyes met, and Mia felt that electric pull again, stronger now, charged with shared danger and trust. Sebastian believed in her. This man who'd seen her at her lowest, who'd watched her break down and build herself back up in the space of 24 hours, looked at her like she was capable of moving mountains. Maybe she was. Metropolitan Bank was a glass and steel monolith in the financial district. Maria pulled up to the front entrance where a security guard immediately approached, but Sebastian was already out, speaking quickly to someone on his phone. My father, he explained to Mia. The bank's director owes him a favor. Of course he did. Sebastian's world was one where powerful people owed each other favors, where a phone call could keep a bank open after hours, where problems got solved with connections and money. But as they walked through the pristine lobby, Maria flashing her badge, Sebastian radiating authority, and Mia still in her borrowed suit, she realized she was part of that world now too. She owned $15 million in property. She was the heir to a woman who'd been brave enough to hide evidence against the mob. She belonged here. The director, A nervous man named Harrison met them at the vault entrance. "Mr. Stone, your father explained the urgency, though I must say this is highly irregular." "We appreciate your cooperation," Maria said, her badge and gun making it clear this wasn't a request. Box 447, registered to Loretta Campano. Harrison led them into the climate-controlled vault, his hands shaking slightly as he checked the records. Box 447. Yes, transferred from First National Trust in 2008. But Ms. Campano, I'll need to verify your identity and your authorization to access. I'm her sole heir. Mia pulled out the documents Daniel had given her, along with her ID. This is my grandmother's safety deposit box. Harrison studied the papers, then nodded. He retrieved a long metal box from the wall and placed it on the table in the private viewing room. You'll have privacy. Take as long as you need. When the door closed behind him, the three of them stared at the box. 30 years of secrets. Evidence worth killing for. Whatever's in there, Maria said quietly. It's going to change everything. Are you ready? Mia thought about her grandmother, dying in a hospital bed, holding Mia's hand and whispering, "Be brave, Piccola. You're stronger than you know." She'd been saying goodbye and passing the torch. I'm ready. The box opened with a soft click. Inside were three things: a leather journal, a USB drive, and a sealed letter addressed to Mia in Nana's careful handwriting. Mia's hands shook as she opened the letter. My dearest Mia, if you're reading this, I am gone, and you have found what I've been protecting all these years. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you the truth while I was alive. I'm sorry for the burden I'm leaving you. But I know you, my brave girl. You will do what's right, even when it's hard. Antonio was a good man who died trying to expose evil. The journal contains his records, names, dates, amounts. Proof of how dirty money became clean through real estate. The USB has copies of everything, along with evidence I gathered over the years. Men who thought themselves untouchable. Vincent Corleone's father was one of them. Vincent grew up knowing about the evidence Antonio compiled. When his father died 10 years ago, Vincent became obsessed with finding it. He became a lawyer specifically to get close to me, to gain my trust. I let him think he succeeded. I let him manage my properties, collect my rents, even hide my assets from you for a time. Because I was setting a trap. Every transaction Vincent made, every dollar he stole, every fraudulent document he filed, it's all evidence. Not just of his crimes, but of the network he works for. The crime families that laundered money in the 80s never went away, Mia. They just got better at hiding. Give this evidence to the FBI. Trust Agent Vidal. She was Antonio's niece, did you know? Family, even if distant. She'll know what to do. And Mia? Live. Really live. Use the buildings to build something good. Find love. Be happy. You deserve the life I couldn't give you. You are my greatest pride. Con amore.
Dana.
Tears blurred Mia's vision. Beside her, Sebastian read over her shoulder, his breath warm against her ear. Agent Vidal. Mia managed, looking up. You're Antonio's niece? Maria's professional mask slipped, revealing raw emotion. He was my uncle. I was 8 when he died. I became an FBI agent because of him. She looked at the journal reverently. Your grandmother and I have been in contact for years, building the case brick by brick. She was the bravest person I've ever known. Sebastian opened the journal carefully. Page after page of meticulous accounting, property addresses, names that Mia recognized from news stories about organized crime, amounts in the millions. Decades of money laundering, all documented in Antonio's precise hand. And interspersed throughout, in Nana's handwriting, were updates. New names. New transactions. She'd spent 30 years continuing Antonio's work. This is enough to bring down 3 crime families, Maria breathed, scanning the pages. And at least a dozen seemingly legitimate businesses, several politicians, 2 judges. She stopped, her face going pale.
What?
Mia asked. Maria turned the journal toward them, pointing to an entry dated 2015. Stone Industries. $5.2 million property purchase. East Side Development. Source: Benedetti Family Laundering Operation. Sebastian's father's company. The color drained from Sebastian's face. No, he whispered. My father wouldn't. It might have been without his knowledge, Maria said quickly. Companies that size, sometimes money changes hands, and the CEO doesn't know the source. But we'll have to investigate. Everyone named in this journal will be investigated. Sebastian stumbled back, and Mia caught his arm. She could see his world crumbling. The father he was trying to prove himself to, the family legacy he'd been working to inherit, all of it potentially built on dirty money. Sebastian, she said softly. He looked at her, and the anguish in his eyes broke her heart. I didn't know, he said. I swear to God, Mia, I didn't know. I know. She pulled him close, their positions reversed now, her comforting him, her being the strong one. We'll figure this out. Together. His arms came around her, holding tight, and Mia felt the shift between them, from allies to something deeper. Something forged in fire and secrets and trust. Maria's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and cursed. Vincent just left his office. His secretary says he mentioned going to Metropolitan Bank. He's coming here, Mia said.
Now.
Maria was already moving, tucking the journal and USB into an evidence bag. We need to leave.
Now.
They burst out of the viewing room, Harrison jumping at their sudden appearance. Call security, Maria ordered. Nobody comes into this vault until... The lights went out. Emergency backup lights kicked in, bathing everything in eerie red. And through the lobby's glass walls, Mia saw 3 men in suits walking through the front entrance. Vincent Corleone led them, and he was smiling. He'd found them, and he hadn't come alone. The vault, Maria snapped, already pulling her weapon. Get back to the vault. Now. But Harrison was frozen in panic, his key card to the vault door trembling in his hand. Sebastian grabbed it from him, swiping them back into the secure area just as Vincent's voice echoed through the lobby. Ms. Campano, there's no need for dramatics. I just want to talk. Maria positioned herself at the vault entrance, her gun trained on the approaching figures. Federal agent. Stop where you are. Vincent did stop, holding up his hands in a gesture of peace that fooled no one. In the red emergency lighting, his smile looked demonic. Agent Vidal. I should have known. You Benedettos never could let things go, could you? You're under investigation for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy, Maria called out. Whatever you're planning, it's over. Over? Vincent laughed. Agent Vidal, it's just beginning. You see, the unfortunate thing about evidence is that it's only useful if it can be authenticated. And if the building that houses it were to, say, catch fire. Mia's heart stopped. You wouldn't. Wouldn't I? A tragic electrical fire during a power outage. These old building systems are so unreliable. Vincent's eyes locked onto hers, cold and merciless. Last chance, Ms. Campano. Give me what's in that box. Walk away with my original offer and everyone lives. Keep fighting and people get hurt. One of the men behind Vincent moved his jacket aside, revealing a gun. There are security cameras everywhere, Sebastian said, his voice hard. Witnesses. You can't just... Can't I? Vincent's attention shifted to Sebastian, and his smile widened. Tell me, Mr. Stone, does your father know you're here? Does he know what that journal contains? I called him 20 minutes ago, told him his son was about to expose Stone Industries' connection to the Benedetti family. He was very concerned. Sebastian's face went white. In fact, Vincent continued, pulling out his phone, he asked me to give you a message. He turned the phone around. On the screen was a video call. Charles Stone, Sebastian's father, looking older and harder than Mia had imagined. Behind him were 2 more men in suits. Sebastian. Charles Stone's voice was ice. You need to walk away from this. Now. Dad, what are you? I don't have time to explain. But if that evidence becomes public, it will destroy everything I've built. Everything you stand to inherit. Do you understand me? Sebastian's breathing went shallow. Did you know? About the money laundering? The pause was answer enough. Some of it, Charles admitted. Not all. Not at first. By the time I realized how deep it went, I was already compromised. But Sebastian, I built something good from it. The jobs we've created, the buildings, the charitable foundations. Built on blood money, Sebastian said, his voice breaking. Built on survival. Charles's composure cracked. You think the world is black and white? You think successful men get where they are by being pure? I did what I had to do to give you the life you've had. And now you're going to throw it away for some waitress you've known for 3 weeks.
The words hit Mia like a slap.
Some waitress. The dismissal, the contempt. It reminded her of every person who'd ever looked through her like she didn't exist. Don't, Sebastian said quietly, dangerously. Don't talk about her like that. Then prove you're my son, and walk away. Mia watched Sebastian's face, saw the war raging there. This was everything he'd been working for, his father's approval, his inheritance, his place in the family empire. And it was being offered to him in exchange for betraying her. Their eyes met. I'm sorry, Sebastian whispered. Mia's world stopped. Sebastian, no. But he was already moving, stepping away from her, toward the vault entrance. Toward his father's approval. Toward everything he'd ever wanted. Smart boy, Vincent said. Maria kept her gun trained on Vincent's men, but Mia could see the calculation in the agent's eyes. 3 armed men, plus Vincent. 1 FBI agent. Even with Sebastian's betrayal, the odds weren't good. The evidence, Vincent said to Sebastian. Bring me the journal and the USB drive, and your father's name stays out of this. My word. Sebastian reached the vault door. Mia couldn't breathe, couldn't think. This couldn't be happening. Not after everything. Not after the way he'd looked at her, held her, made her believe she wasn't alone. He picked up the evidence bag Maria had prepared. Sebastian, please, Mia heard herself say. Your grandmother's cup. You told me it was precious because she gave it to you, because it meant she believed in the man you could be. What man are you choosing to be right now? Sebastian froze, his hand on the bag. The cup is just a thing, Charles Stone said from the phone. Family is everything, Sebastian. Blood is everything. Nana was my family, Mia said, tears streaming down her face now. She bled and sacrificed and died protecting that evidence. She believed people like Antonio, like her, like me, we matter. That the truth matters more than money or power or… Enough. Vincent's patience snapped. Give me the evidence or Agent Vidal dies. Your choice, Mr. Stone. One of the gunmen moved toward Maria. Everything happened at once. Sebastian grabbed the evidence bag and threw it to Mia. Run, he shouted. The gunman fired. Maria returned fire. The vault filled with the deafening crack of gunshots and the acrid smell of gunpowder. Sebastian slammed into Mia, tackling her behind a row of safety deposit boxes as bullets sparked off metal. His body covered hers, protective, and Mia clutched the evidence bag to her chest. There's a service exit, Sebastian gasped in her ear. Through the back of the vault. When I say go. I'm not leaving you. Yes, you are. He pulled back to look at her, his gray eyes fierce. You think I could betray you? After watching you fight for this? Mia, you're the bravest person I've ever met. You're everything I've been pretending to be. More gunshots. Maria's voice shouting commands. The wail of approaching sirens. Someone had called the police. My father made his choices, Sebastian said. I'm making mine. Get that evidence to the authorities. Finish what your grandmother started. Not without you, Mia said fiercely. Then we go together. Sebastian pulled her up, keeping himself between her and the gunfire. Maria,
go!
Maria shouted back, providing cover fire. I've got backup coming. Get her out. They ran. Sebastian's hand locked around Mia's, the evidence bag clutched to her chest. Behind them, Vincent was screaming orders, but the sirens were getting closer. Through the vault, down a corridor Mia had never seen, to a service door marked emergency exit only. Sebastian kicked it open. They emerged into an alley behind the bank, the November night air shocking after the vault's climate control. Sebastian pulled out his phone, calling someone. Daniel, we need extraction. Back alley of Metropolitan Bank. Armed hostiles. Yes now. But as he spoke, Mia saw movement at the alley's far end. 2 more men in suits, blocking their escape. Vincent had planned for this. Other way, Sebastian said, pivoting. They ran toward the street, but a black SUV screeched around the corner, cutting them off. Vincent stepped out, no longer smiling.
He had a gun now.
End of the line, he said. Mia and Sebastian backed against the wall, nowhere left to run. The evidence that could bring down crime families, corrupt politicians, and dirty businesses was in Mia's arms, and Vincent was going to kill them both for it. You stupid, stupid children, Vincent said, raising the gun. Did you really think you could win against people like us? We've been doing this for decades. We own judges, police, politicians. That evidence might as well not exist. It exists, Mia said, her voice steady despite her terror. And my grandmother spent 30 years making sure it would survive. You think she only kept one copy? Vincent's eyes narrowed. You're bluffing. Am I? My grandmother was married to a forensic accountant who worked for the FBI. You think he taught her nothing? You think she'd keep all her eggs in one basket? Mia took a breath, praying her gamble would work. That USB drive and journal? Their insurance. The real evidence went to the FBI years ago. You've already lost. For a moment, uncertainty flickered across Vincent's face.
Then his phone rang.
He answered it, his eyes never leaving them. Mia watched his expression transform from uncertainty to rage to something that looked like fear. What do you mean simultaneous raids? He hissed into the phone. What locations? He hung up. The gun in his hand shook with fury. You're lying. Maria Vidal couldn't have been building a case for 3 years? Mia said. Couldn't have been working with my grandmother all along? Vincent, you've been so focused on the evidence from the 80s, you never considered that Nana was collecting evidence on you. It was a desperate bluff based on Nana's letter, on the updates she'd written in Antonio's journal. But seeing Vincent's face, Mia knew she'd struck truth. Behind him, more sirens. More police cars converging on the bank. Vincent raised his gun, his hand steady now, his eyes cold. Then you're of no use to me alive. Sebastian stepped in front of Mia. You'll have to go through me first. Gladly, Vincent said. The gunshot was deafening in the narrow alley. But it wasn't Vincent who'd fired. Maria Vidal stood at the alley entrance, her weapon trained on Vincent, her face hard as stone. Federal agent. Drop your weapon. Now. Behind her, a dozen police officers and FBI agents flooded the alley. Vincent looked at the gun in his hand, at the forces surrounding him, at Mia and Sebastian clutching each other against the wall.
And he ran.
He made it 6 steps before 3 agents tackled him to the ground. Mia's legs gave out. Sebastian caught her, lowering them both to the cold pavement. Around them, controlled chaos, Vincent being cuffed and read his rights, his accomplices surrendered, agents securing the scene. Is it over? Mia whispered. Sebastian held her tighter. I don't know. Maria approached, holstering her weapon. But her expression wasn't triumphant. Mia, she said quietly. We raided Whitmore and Associates, like you guessed. Vincent had files on 20 estates he was defrauding. You were right about everything. Then why do you look like that? Sebastian asked. Maria crouched down to their level. Because we also raided Stone Industries' financial offices.
Mia?
Sebastian's father is being arrested as we speak. The evidence against him is substantial. Sebastian made a sound like he'd been punched. And there's something else, Maria continued. Vincent wasn't working alone. He had a partner helping him hide the properties from you. Someone who had access to your grandmother in her final years. Who? Mia asked. Your mother. The world tilted. No, Mia breathed. That's not possible. My mother hasn't been in my life since I was 6. She wouldn't. She's been taking payments from Vincent for 3 years, Maria said gently. She was supposed to make sure you never found out about the inheritance. When you got hired at the café by accident, she's the one who told Vincent where to find you. Mia felt something break inside her chest. Her mother. The woman who'd abandoned her had spent 3 more years betraying her from a distance. Where is she? Mia asked numbly. Philadelphia. We have agents heading there now. Beside her, Sebastian was silent, his body rigid with shock. His father arrested. His family empire crumbling. Everything he'd known revealed as a lie. Mia reached for his hand, but he pulled away. Don't, he said roughly. My family did this to you. My father, his business partners, they helped steal your life. Sebastian. How can you even look at me? His voice cracked. Every time you see me, you'll remember what my family took from you. That's not true. But Sebastian was standing, backing away. You should hate me. God knows I hate myself right now. Mr. Stone, Maria said. I need you to come to the field office. We have questions about your knowledge of your father's activities. I didn't know, Sebastian said hollowly. But that doesn't matter, does it? I still benefited. Every opportunity one had, every advantage, built on money, that should have gone to people like Mia. He looked at her one last time, and Mia saw devastation in his eyes. I'm sorry, he whispered, for everything. Then he was walking away, flanked by federal agents, and Mia was alone on the cold pavement with evidence that had cost her grandmother 30 years, that had revealed her mother's ultimate betrayal, that had destroyed the first man she'd let herself care about in years. She'd won. So, why did it feel like she'd lost everything? 3 days later, Mia stood in front of her grandmother's grave for the first time in 6 months. She'd been too broke to visit before, couldn't afford the subway fare to the cemetery in Queens. Now she could afford a car service, a private jet if she wanted. The irony tasted bitter. I found it, Nana, she said quietly, placing fresh roses on the headstone. The evidence. The buildings. The truth about Antonio. All of it. The November wind scattered leaves across the cemetery. Mia pulled her coat tighter. Not the thin jacket she'd worn a week ago, but a real wool coat. One of many things she could suddenly afford now that the properties were legally hers. Vincent's in federal custody. They're charging him with fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy, attempted murder. Turns out you documented everything, every fraudulent transaction, every estate he stole, every lie he told. The FBI said you built their case brick by brick. A tear slipped down Mia's cheek. Agent Vidal said you were the bravest person she'd ever known. She was right. Mia's voice broke. But Nana, why didn't you tell me? All those years you were sick, struggling to pay bills while you owned millions. Why did you do that to yourself?
To me.
The wind offered no answers. Mia sank onto the cold ground beside the grave, not caring about her expensive coat. Mom was arrested yesterday in Philadelphia. She confessed to everything. Vincent paid her $50,000 to keep me away from the inheritance. She said. The words hurt to speak. She said she deserved the money more than I did. That you always loved me more than you loved her, and this was her way of getting even. More tears now, hot against her cold cheeks. I don't understand how she could hate me that much. I was 6 when she left. What did I do except need her? Mia pressed her palm against the headstone, imagining she could feel her grandmother's warmth through the cold marble. And Sebastian. God, Nana, you would have liked him. He's nothing like I thought at first. He's brave and kind, and he stood between me and a gun. But his father was one of the people Antonio was investigating. The evidence we found is going to send Charles Stone to prison. Sebastian won't even look at me now. Won't return my calls. She'd tried. Every day for 3 days, she'd called, texted, even gone to his apartment. But Sebastian had vanished into FBI interrogations and lawyer meetings, and the one message he'd sent was clear. I need time. I'm sorry. I got everything you wanted me to have, Mia whispered. The buildings, the evidence, the truth. But I feel more alone than I did when I was sleeping on Kayla's couch. She wouldn't want that. Mia spun around. Agent Maria Vidal stood a few feet away, holding her own bouquet of flowers. She dressed in civilian clothes, jeans, and a leather jacket, looking more like a person and less like an FBI agent. Sorry, Maria said. I didn't mean to intrude. I come here every month to talk to Loretta. And to my Uncle Antonio. He's buried 3 plots over. Mia watched as Maria placed flowers on Nana's grave, then moved to a nearby headstone. Antonio Benedetto, the man who'd started everything. Did you know her well? Mia asked. My grandmother? For the last 5 years, yes. Before that, she was just the woman my uncle married before he died. My family wasn't happy about that marriage. Antonio was much older, and we thought she was after his money. Maria smiled sadly. We were idiots. Loretta was the strongest person I ever met. She sat beside Mia on the ground, not caring about her genes either. When I joined the FBI and got assigned to organized crime, I started investigating my uncle's death. That's when I found Loretta. She'd been waiting 25 years for someone from Antonio's family to come asking the right questions. Why didn't she just go to the FBI herself? Mia asked. Because the agent who got Antonio killed was never caught. Loretta didn't know who to trust. But when I showed up with my badge and Antonio's eyes, Maria touched her own face. She knew. Family.
Blood.
The only thing she could trust. Maria pulled out her phone, scrolling to a video file. She asked me to give this to you. But only after Vincent was arrested. Only after you'd proven you could handle the truth. Mia's heart clenched. Is that your grandmother? Recorded 6 months before she died. Maria pressed play. The screen showed Nana sitting in what Mia recognized as the hospice room, so thin and fragile that Mia's breath caught. But Nana's eyes were bright, fierce, alive. Mia, piccola Mia, Nana said, and Mia sobbed at hearing that beloved voice. If you're watching this, you've done it. You've found the evidence. You've stopped Vincent. You've made me so proud. On screen, Nana smiled. I know you're angry with me for keeping secrets. You have every right to be. But I need you to understand, everything I did to give you a choice. Mia wiped at her tears, trying to see clearly. When Antonio died, I could have given the evidence to the FBI right then. But I was young and scared and pregnant with your mother. The people Antonio was investigating made it clear, if I talked, we all died. So I took Antonio's money, bought the buildings like he'd told me to, and I hid. Nana's expression grew sad. I tried to raise your mother right, but she was angry. Angry about Antonio, about the life we lived, about everything. When she had you, and then left. Mia, that broke my heart. But it also gave me hope. Because you, sweet girl, you were nothing like her. You were curious and brave and kind. Like Antonio. I couldn't give you the evidence when you were young. Too dangerous. So I waited. I worked my seamstress job, I raised you, and I documented every crime Vincent and his associates committed. I built the case Antonio started. Nana leaned closer to the camera. The medical bills? I could have paid them with the properties. But if I did, Vincent would know I was aware of the buildings. He would have killed us both. So I stayed poor, stayed invisible, and I prayed you would be strong enough to survive what came after. Tears streamed down the face of the woman on screen. I'm sorry I couldn't make it easier. I'm sorry you'll face this alone. But Mia, you're not really alone. You have Antonio's courage in your blood. You have my stubbornness in your bones. And you have something I never had, the chance to choose your own path. Nana smiled through her tears. The buildings are yours. Sell them, keep them, burn them down, it's your choice. The evidence is yours to give or hide. Your life is yours to live. That's what Antonio died for. That's what I lived for. Your freedom to choose. And Mia? When you find someone who sees you, really sees you, who stands beside you even when it's hard, hold on to that. Don't let pride or fear or the past steal your future. Promise me. The video ended. Mia sat in stunned silence, Maria's hand warm on her shoulder. She gave me a choice, Mia whispered. She gave you everything, Maria said, including permission to live your own life. So, what are you going to choose? Mia thought about the buildings, 5 properties worth $15 million. About the café, where she'd worked as a waitress. About Sebastian, brilliant and broken, hiding from her because he thought his father's sins made him unworthy. About her grandmother, who'd loved a man brave enough to stand against corruption, and who'd raised a granddaughter to do the same. "I choose to fight," Mia said, standing up. "Vincent might be arrested, but the case isn't over. The trial, the testimony, making sure everyone in that journal faces justice, that's going to take time and courage. Nana spent 30 years on this. I can spend however long it takes to finish it." Maria smiled, spoken like a Benedetto. "And I choose to forgive my mother." The words surprised Mia, but they felt right. Not because she deserves it, but because carrying that anger will poison me. Nana didn't raise me to be bitter. "That's very mature of you. And I choose Sebastian." Mia's voice strengthened. "If he'll have me, his father's crimes aren't his crimes. He chose to help me when he could have walked away. He stood between me and a gun. I'm not letting him throw that away, because of guilt he doesn't deserve." Maria stood too, brushing grass from her jeans. "He's at the federal building right now. 4th interview this week. Want a ride?" 20 minutes later, Mia walked through the FBI field office with Agent Vidal as her escort. Agents nodded at Maria, curious eyes tracking Mia, the woman whose grandmother had built a case that was bringing down a criminal empire. "He's in conference room C," Maria said, "with his lawyers and our investigators."
But Mia?
"He's been cooperating fully, giving us access to Stone Industries records, helping us trace the money. Whatever his father did, Sebastian is trying to make it right." Mia's heart ached. Of course he was. Through the conference room window, she could see him. Sebastian looked exhausted, his suit rumpled, dark circles under his eyes. He was listening to one of Daniel Queenan's associates, his expression carefully blank. But as Mia watched, his gaze drifted to the window. Their eyes met. Everything else fell away. Mia saw the moment Sebastian's composure cracked, the relief, the longing, the pain all flashing across his face. He stood abruptly, saying something to the lawyers, then walking out of the conference room. They met in the hallway, surrounded by FBI agents and lawyers and the machinery of justice, but Mia only saw him. "Mia," Sebastian breathed, "you shouldn't be here. This is your father's mess, not yours," Mia interrupted. "I know the difference. But my whole life, everything I had, was given to you by a father who made terrible choices. That doesn't define you, Sebastian. Your choices define you." Mia stepped closer. "And you chose to help me. You chose to stand up to Vincent. You chose to give the FBI everything they needed to build their case, even though it meant destroying your family's legacy. Those choices matter." Sebastian's jaw worked. "How can you forgive this?" "Because my grandmother spent 30 years proving that we're not responsible for the sins of those who came before us. We're only responsible for what we do with the truth once we know it." Mia reached for his hand. "And you're doing the right thing." "I've lost everything," Sebastian said roughly. "My father's going to prison. Stone Industries is being dismantled. The café lease is under investigation. I have nothing to offer you except you," Mia said. "That's all I want, Sebastian. Not your family money or your connections or your company. Just you. The man who saw me working minimum wage and later helped me fight for what was mine. The man who's brave enough to testify against his own father." "Mia, I love you," she said. The words were out before she could stop them, but she didn't want to stop them. "I know it's only been a week. I know it's insane. But I've spent 3 years surviving, and you taught me the difference between surviving and living. You make me want to live." Sebastian pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. She felt him shaking, felt the moment he stopped fighting his emotions and just let himself feel. "I love you too," he whispered into her hair. "God help me. I fell in love with you the moment I watched you stand up to Vincent and refuse to be intimidated. You're extraordinary, Mia Campano." They stood there in the middle of the FBI field office, holding each other while federal cases were built around them and futures were rewritten. Finally, Sebastian pulled back enough to look at her. "What happens now?" "Now we testify. We help put Vincent and everyone in that journal away. We make sure my grandmother's 30 years of work means something." "And after?" Mia smiled. After we rebuild the cafe, our lives, whatever we want. Together. Together, Sebastian echoed and kissed her. It was a kiss that tasted like hope and new beginnings, like choosing courage over fear, like two broken people deciding they were stronger as one. When they finally broke apart, Daniel Queenan was standing in the conference room doorway, looking pleased. Miss Campano, good timing. We just got word that Vincent Corleone is willing to make a deal. He'll testify against his partners and the crime families in exchange for a reduced sentence. With his testimony and your grandmother's evidence, we can dismantle an entire criminal network. What do you need from me? Mia asked. Your testimony at trial, your grandmother's documents, and your courage. Daniel's expression sobered. This won't be easy. These are powerful people who won't go quietly. Mia thought about Nana, facing down 30 years of danger to protect evidence that could change everything. About Antonio, who died trying to expose the truth. About the choice her grandmother had given her. I'm ready, she said. Sebastian's hand found hers, squeezing tight. We're ready. And standing there, surrounded by the machinery of justice that her grandmother had spent a lifetime feeding with evidence and courage, Mia finally understood. This was what Nana had been preparing her for. Not just to inherit buildings or money, but to inherit a legacy of standing up to corruption. Of choosing what's right over what's easy. Of being brave. The darkest hour was over. The fight was just beginning. And Mia Campano, former broke waitress and current owner of a $15 million real estate empire, was going to win.
Yes.
They're back together. But the war isn't over yet. It's just getting started. Are you ready for the climactic showdown? Drop a comment with your predictions. And if you've been loving this journey, smash that subscribe button. We're almost at the finish line. The courthouse was packed. Mia sat in the witness box 6 months after finding her grandmother's evidence, facing a gallery filled with reporters, victims of Vincent's fraud, and family members of the crime bosses on trial. The weight of their collective stares should have terrified her. Instead, she felt her grandmother's hand on her shoulder, invisible but present. The prosecutor, a fierce woman named Catherine Morrison, approached with the leather journal. Ms. Campano, can you identify this? That's my grandmother's journal. Well, originally my grandfather Antonio's. He used it to document financial crimes he discovered while working as a forensic accountant in the 1980s. And what did your grandmother do with this journal? Mia looked directly at the defense table, where Vincent Corleone sat between his lawyers, his face carefully neutral. Beside him at separate tables sat 3 men whose families had terrorized New York for decades. Men who thought themselves untouchable. They were about to learn otherwise. She continued his work, Mia said clearly. For 30 years, she documented every transaction, every property purchase, every dollar laundered through real estate. She risked her life to create an unbreakable chain of evidence. Catherine flipped through the journal, stopping at a marked page. Can you read this entry, dated March 2015? Mia's voice was steady. Stone Industries, East Side Development Project. $5.2 million, source traced to Benedetti Family Construction Company, itself funded by Calabria Import Operations. Antonio noted that the money was laundered through 3 shell corporations before reaching Stone Industries. In the gallery, Mia saw Sebastian flinch. His father Charles was being tried separately, but every mention of Stone Industries was another nail in that coffin. And did your grandmother verify this information?
Yes.
She added a note 6 months later. Mia pointed to Nana's handwriting. Property completed and sold for $12 million. Profit split between legitimate Stone Industries accounts and offshore holdings traced to the Calabria family. So Charles Stone knowingly accepted laundered money and shared the profits with organized crime? According to my grandmother's investigation, yes. The defense attorney shot up. Objection. This is hearsay. The witness has no personal knowledge. Your Honor, Catherine interrupted smoothly, we have corroborating financial records, testimony from Vincent Corleone himself, and forensic accounting that confirms every entry in this journal. Ms. Campano is simply explaining her grandmother's documentation process. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, nodded. Overruled. Continue. For 3 hours, Mia walked the court through the journal. Property by property, transaction by transaction, crime by crime. The evidence was overwhelming. Antonio's meticulous initial investigation combined with Loretta's 30 years of updates created an unbreakable case. But Catherine had saved the best for last. Miss Campano, your grandmother passed away 3 years ago. Is that correct? Yes. And in those 3 years, Vincent Corleone managed her estate. Can you tell the court what he did? This was it. The moment that would destroy Vincent completely.
He stole everything, Mia said.
My grandmother owned 5 properties worth $15 million. Vincent hid them from me, collected the rents himself, and deposited the money into accounts he controlled. When I accidentally got hired at my own café, he tried to buy the properties from me for a fraction of their worth. When I refused, he broke into the café, threatened my life, and attempted to destroy the evidence my grandmother had died protecting. Vincent's mask finally cracked. That's not. I was managing the estate according to Mr. Corleone, the judge said sharply. You'll have your chance to testify. But Vincent wouldn't testify. He'd already made his deal, agreeing to plead guilty and testify against the crime families in exchange for 20 years instead of life. 20 years wasn't enough for what he'd done to Nana, but it was something. One final question, Catherine said. Miss Campano, why do you think your grandmother spent 30 years on this investigation? What was she hoping to accomplish? Mia looked at the gallery, at the faces of other victims, at Sebastian who sat in the front row watching her with pride and love. She wanted to prove that regular people matter, Mia said. That a seamstress and a waitress could bring down corrupt empires. That money and power don't put you above the law. And that sometimes the longest revenge is living long enough to see justice done. The gallery erupted in applause. The judge's gavel came down, but she was smiling too. As Mia stepped down from the witness box, Catherine squeezed her hand. That was perfect. We've got them. The trial lasted another week, but the verdict was never in doubt. Vincent's testimony, combined with Loretta's evidence and the FBI's investigation, dismantled criminal operations that had run for 40 years. The Calabria family, guilty on all counts. The Benedetti crime family, guilty on all counts. Vincent Corleone, guilty, sentenced to 20 years. Charles Stone, tried separately, found guilty of money laundering and conspiracy, sentenced to 15 years. And Mia's mother, Diane Campano, guilty of conspiracy to commit fraud, sentenced to 5 years. The day Diane's sentence came down, Mia went to see her. The prison visiting room was gray and depressing, smelling of industrial cleaner and desperation. Diane looked older than her 48 years, her face lined with bitterness and regret. They sat across from each other, a table and a lifetime of hurt between them. Why did you come? Diane asked. Her voice was rough, like she'd been crying. Because Nana would want me to, Mia said simply. Diane laughed bitterly. Of course. Perfect Loretta and her perfect granddaughter. Do you know what it was like, being her daughter? Being compared to her every single day. No, Mia said. But I know what it was like being your daughter, and wondering why I wasn't worth staying for. Diane's eyes filled with tears. You deserved better than me. I did, Mia agreed. But I'm not here for apologies or explanations. I'm here to tell you that I forgive you. Diane stared at her. What? I forgive you for leaving. For helping Vincent. For choosing money over me. Mia's voice was calm, certain. Not because you deserve it, but because holding on to that anger was poisoning me. Nana taught me to be strong, not to be bitter. I don't understand, Diane whispered. I know you don't. Maybe someday you will. Mia stood. I've set up a trust for when you get out. Enough to start over if you want. What you do with it is your choice. Mia. Goodbye, Mom. Mia walked out of the prison into the sunshine, and with each step, she felt lighter. The past couldn't be changed, but she could choose not to let it define her future. Sebastian was waiting by his car, and when he saw her face, he opened his arms. Mia walked into them, finally fully free. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Like I can breathe," she said. They drove back to the city in comfortable silence. So much had changed in 6 months. The trials were over, the guilty were sentenced, and Mia had decisions to make about her future. That night, Sebastian took her to Bologna's café, their café now, technically, though they'd been running it as partners since the inheritance was settled. But when they walked in, Mia gasped. The space had been transformed. Where there had been simple tables and chairs, now there were photographs covering the walls. Images of Nana, of Antonio, of the old neighborhood before gentrification. A shrine to the past, but also a celebration. Laura Montana stood behind the counter, beaming. "Surprise. We've been working on this for weeks." Daniel Queenan was there, along with agent Maria Vidal, and a dozen other people who'd helped with the case. Even some of the other victims of Vincent's fraud had come. "What is this?" Mia asked. Sebastian took her hand, leading her to the center of the cafe. "This is a beginning. I've been thinking about what we should do with this place. With all 5 properties, actually." Mia's heart raced. They'd been discussing their options for months, selling, renting, developing. But they'd never quite agreed on the right path. "Your grandmother bought these buildings to protect evidence," Sebastian continued. "But I think she also bought them to protect the neighborhood. To keep a piece of the old community alive in a changing city." He gestured to a series of architectural drawings on the wall. "What if we turn these properties into something that serves that community? The cafe stays a cafe, but we expand it. Use the apartments as affordable housing for artists and young families. Convert the law office space into a community center. The bookstore becomes a real bookstore again, not a chain." Mia stared at the drawings, her vision blurring with tears. "We could call it the Loretta Campano Community Project," Sebastian said quietly. "A living memorial to your grandmother. Proof that her 30 years of sacrifice meant something beyond just catching criminals." "Sebastian, that would cost millions. The properties are worth more if we develop them commercially." "I don't care about maximizing profit," Sebastian interrupted. "My father spent his whole life chasing money and power, and where did it get him? Prison and shame." His gray eyes were intense. "I want to build something good. Something that actually helps people. With you." Maria Vidal stepped forward, holding an envelope. "Before you decide, there's one more thing Loretta left you." Mia's hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a letter in Nana's handwriting and a check for $200,000. "Dearest Mia, if you're reading this, the trials are over and justice has been served. I'm so proud of you, Piccola. I always knew you had the strength." The check is from a separate account Vincent never knew about. Antonio's life insurance, invested carefully over 30 years. It's not much compared to the properties, but it's clean money. Money you can use without worrying about its source. My hope is that you'll use it to do something good. Build something that lasts. Make the neighborhood beautiful again. Help people the way I wish someone had helped us. But whatever you choose, know that I love you. And that true wealth isn't measured in money or property. It's measured in the lives you touch and the love you share. Be happy, my brave girl. You've earned it. Con tutto il mio amore.
Nana.
Mia looked up at Sebastian, at the drawings, at the people gathered in the cafe who'd become her family over these incredible 6 months. "Let's do it," she said. "Let's build something good." The room erupted in cheers. But Maria held up a hand. "There's one more thing. We've been going through all the evidence, tying up loose ends. And we found something interesting." She pulled out a document. Antonio Benedetto didn't just document crimes. He also documented acts of kindness. People who helped him, who resisted the corruption, who tried to do the right thing. Maria flipped to a specific page. In 1987, a young police officer helped Antonio gather evidence, risking his career and his life. Antonio wrote that he hoped someday he could thank that officer's family. "Okay," Mia said, not understanding. That police officer was Sebastian's grandfather. Charles Stone's father. Sebastian's head snapped up.
What?
Your grandfather was a good man who fought corruption, Maria said gently. Your father chose a different path, but that doesn't erase your family's legacy. You come from good people, Sebastian. People who would be proud of what you're doing now. Sebastian's eyes filled with tears. He'd been carrying the shame of his father's crimes for months, believing his entire family legacy was corrupt. But it wasn't. His grandfather had been a hero. Mia took his hand, squeezing tight. Good people and bad choices. We get to decide which path we follow. I choose good, Sebastian said roughly.
With you.
Always with you. He pulled a small box from his pocket, and Mia's heart stopped. I know it's fast, Sebastian said, dropping to one knee right there in the café surrounded by everyone they cared about. I know we've only known each other 6 months. But Mia, you've shown me what real courage looks like. What real strength is. You've taught me the difference between existing and living. He opened the box, revealing a simple, beautiful ring. Marry me. Help me build something good. Grow old with me in this cafe, serving coffee and fighting for justice and making your grandmother proud. Mia didn't hesitate. Yes. The cafe exploded with applause and tears and joy. Sebastian slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her, and Mia felt her grandmother's presence so strongly it was like Nana was standing right there, smiling. Later, after everyone had gone home and the cafe was quiet, Mia and Sebastian stood together looking at the wall of photographs. Do you think she knew? Mia asked. That it would all turn out like this? I think she hoped, Sebastian said. And she gave you every tool you needed to make it happen. Mia thought about the journey, from broke waitress to property owner, from struggling to survive to building something that would help others survive. From alone to surrounded by love. Thank you, Nana, she whispered. And in the gentle creak of the old building, in the warmth of Sebastian's hand in hers, in the promise of the future they were going to build, Mia felt her grandmother's answer. You're welcome, Piccola. Now go live. The girl who'd been invisible had become impossible to ignore. The waitress who owned nothing had inherited everything that mattered. And the granddaughter, who'd been left alone, had found a family of her own choosing. Justice had been served. Love had been found. And Loretta Campano's 30 years of courage had created a legacy that would last forever. 1 year later, Mia stood in front of the full-length mirror in what used to be her grandmother's apartment, now renovated and filled with light, but still carrying Nana's spirit in every corner. Her wedding dress was simple, elegant, the color of cream. Nothing like the elaborate gowns she'd once seen in magazines and thought she'd never afford. This one felt right. Felt like her. You look beautiful, Piccola. Mia turned to see Maria Vidal in the doorway, wearing a soft blue dress, her FBI armor replaced with something gentler. Over the past year, Maria had become more than the agent who'd helped solve the case. She'd become family. The connection to Antonio and Nana that Mia had never known she needed. I wish she could be here, Mia said, her throat tight. She is. Maria moved to stand beside her, and Mia saw they had the same eyes, Antonio's eyes, passed down through generations. Every choice you've made this year, every person you've helped, every corner of this neighborhood you've transformed, she's in all of it. Mia looked around the apartment. Through the window, she could see Bologna Street transformed. The cafe below was thriving, its outdoor seating packed even on this crisp October morning. Across the street, the community center buzzed with activity, children's art classes, legal aid clinics, ESL courses for new immigrants. The affordable housing units were fully occupied by artists, young families, and seniors who'd been priced out of the neighborhood they'd built. The bookstore had reopened 3 months ago, and it had become the heart of a small literary renaissance in the area. The Loretta Campano Community Project wasn't just a memorial. It was alive, growing, changing lives. How's your mother doing? Maria asked gently. Mia had visited Diane twice more over the past year. The conversations were still difficult, still painful. But slowly, carefully, they were building something that might someday resemble forgiveness. Maybe even reconciliation. She's taking college courses in prison, Mia said. Accounting, actually. She said she wants to understand what Nana was protecting. What Antonio died for. That's progress. It's something. Mia touched the necklace at her throat. Nana's Saint Metal, the one she'd worn every day of her life. I sent her an invitation to the wedding. She can't come, obviously, but I wanted her to know she was thought of. A knock at the door, and Laura Montana poked her head in, looking radiant in her maid of honor dress. Everyone's ready downstairs. The café looks amazing. Sebastian looks amazing. Also, he's about to pass out from nerves, so we should probably get moving. Mia laughed, the sound bright and free. A year ago, she'd been a broke waitress who couldn't imagine a future beyond the next rent payment. Now she was marrying the man she loved, running a community project that employed 20 people, and making a real difference in the neighborhood her grandmother had died protecting. The journey from invisible to unstoppable had been terrifying and beautiful and worth every moment. "Let's go get you married," Maria said, offering her arm. They descended the stairs together, Maria and Laura flanking Mia, like the family she'd chosen. The café had been transformed with flowers and light, intimate and perfect. 50 people filled the space, all of them connected to the journey that had brought Mia here. Daniel Queenan sat in the front row, looking pleased with himself. He'd become not just a lawyer but a mentor, teaching Mia how to navigate the business world, how to protect her assets while using them for good. Kayla, the friend who'd given Mia a couch when she had nowhere else to go, was crying happy tears already. Mia had made her the manager of the community center, and she was thriving. The other victims of Vincent's fraud were scattered throughout the crowd. With Nana's evidence, they'd all recovered their stolen inheritances. Several had joined the community project, creating a network of support and healing. And at the front, standing under an arch of autumn flowers, was Sebastian. He'd changed too over the past year. The sharp edges of corporate ambition had softened into something better: purpose. He testified against his father with quiet dignity, then walked away from Stone Industries completely. Everything his family had built on corruption, he'd left behind. Instead, he'd thrown himself into the community project with the same intensity he'd once applied to business. The café was thriving under their joint management. He taught business classes at the community center, helping other young entrepreneurs avoid the mistakes his father had made. And every night, he came home to Mia, and they built a life that was theirs alone, untainted by the past, full of hope for the future. When Mia reached him, Sebastian's eyes filled with tears. "Hi," she whispered. "Hi," he whispered back. "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." The ceremony was officiated by a retired judge who'd known Antonio, who'd been one of the good ones fighting corruption in the 80s. His voice was warm as he spoke about love and courage and choosing to build something good from the ashes of the past. "Marriage is a partnership," he said. "A choice you make every day to stand beside someone, to fight for them, to build with them. Mia and Sebastian, you've already proven you know how to do this. You've faced corruption and won. You've chosen community over profit. You've transformed pain into purpose." Mia and Sebastian exchanged vows they'd written themselves. "I promise to see you," Mia said, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "Really see you, the way I wish someone had seen me when I was invisible. I promise to stand beside you in the fight for what's right. And I promise to love you fiercely, completely, the way Nana taught me brave people love." Sebastian's voice was rough with emotion. "I promise to never take you for granted. To remember that the greatest privilege of my life isn't the family I was born into, but the family I'm choosing now. You've taught me what real strength looks like, Mia. I promise to spend the rest of my life being worthy of that lesson." When they kissed, the café erupted in applause and joy. The reception spilled out onto Bologna Street, the neighborhood itself becoming part of the celebration. Someone brought out a sound system, and music filled the air. Children from the community center danced with seniors from the affordable housing units. The bookstore owner shared a table with former FBI agents, artists and lawyers and reformed criminals and everyday people, all brought together by one woman's 30-year mission to prove that justice was possible. As the sun set, painting the street in gold and amber, Mia found herself standing apart from the crowd, just watching, absorbing the impossible beauty of this moment. Maria appeared beside her, holding 2 glasses of wine. "What are you thinking about?" "About how a year ago, I was sleeping on a couch and couldn't afford to eat," Mia said. "And now I'm here. All of this is real." "You made it real," Maria said. "Loretta gave you the tools, but you did the work. We all did the work." Mia gestured to the celebration, to the community they'd built. "This isn't just me. It's everyone who believed that things could be different. Better." Antonio used to say that the greatest act of resistance against corruption is building something beautiful in its place. Maria's eyes were bright. "You built something beautiful, Mia." Sebastian appeared, sliding his arm around Mia's waist, and Maria excused herself with a knowing smile. "Happy?" Sebastian asked. "Deliriously," Mia said. I've never been more certain of anything in my life." He pulled her close, and they swayed to the music drifting from the street. "I got a call from the parole board today. They want me to speak at my father's hearing next year." Mia felt him tense and held him tighter. Charles Stone's fall from grace had been absolute and public. The man who'd once commanded boardrooms and political favors now sat in a federal prison, his empire dismantled, his reputation destroyed. Sebastian visited him once a month, trying to find some kind of peace with the complicated legacy of being his father's son. "What will you say?" Mia asked. "The truth. That his choices hurt people. That he needs to serve his sentence fully. But also..." Sebastian paused. "Also that I forgive him. Not because he deserves it, but because you taught me that forgiveness is how we free ourselves." Mia pulled back to look at him, her heart so full it ached. "Your grandmother's grandfather would be proud of you." "Our grandfather," Sebastian corrected softly. "We're married now. We share everything, including heroes in our family trees." They danced in comfortable silence until Laura appeared, camera in hand. "Picture time. We need documentation of the most epic love story that started with a broken coffee cup." The next hour was a blur of photos and laughter. Mia and Sebastian cutting a cake made by one of the café's regular customers. Throwing the bouquet, which Laura caught with a whoop of triumph. Daniel Queenan giving a toast about justice and love being 2 sides of the same coin. As the evening deepened into night, Mia found herself back in Nana's apartment, her and Sebastian's apartment now, standing at the window overlooking the street. Sebastian came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking?" "That I understand now," Mia said. "Why Nana did it all. The 30 years of hiding, the poverty, the sacrifice. She was buying me this. The buildings, the choice." Mia turned in his arms. She could have given the evidence to the FBI in 1987 and been done with it. But then I would have inherited money without understanding its cost. I would have had wealth without wisdom. She spent 30 years teaching me, through her example, what it means to stand up for what's right. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. "And now?" Sebastian asked. "Now we teach the next generation." Mia smiled. "The kids in the community center, the families in the affordable housing, everyone who walks through the cafe doors. We show them that corruption doesn't have to win. That regular people can build something beautiful. That a seamstress and a waitress can change the world." Sebastian kissed her forehead. "I love you, Mia Stone." "Mia Campano Stone," she corrected with a grin. "I'm keeping Nana's name. It means too much to let it go." "Mia Campano Stone," Sebastian amended. "Destroyer of corrupt empires, builder of communities, breaker of coffee cups, love of my life." They stood together at the window, watching their neighborhood, their family, celebrate below. Tomorrow they'd get back to the work of running the community project, managing the properties, making sure Nana's legacy continued to grow. But tonight, they were simply 2 people who'd found each other in the most unlikely circumstances, who'd chosen courage over comfort, who'd built something good from the ruins of corruption. Mia thought about the girl she'd been a year ago, broke, invisible, certain she'd never amount to anything. That girl would never have believed this was possible. But Nana had known. had spent 30 years building toward this exact moment. "Thank you," Mia whispered to her grandmother's memory.
"For everything."
"For the sacrifice. For the love. For believing I could be brave." The street lamps flickered on, bathing Bologna Street in warm light. Music and laughter drifted up from below. And in the window's reflection, Mia saw not just herself and Sebastian, but the ghost of a woman in a seamstress's apron, smiling. "You did good, Piccola," she could almost hear Nana say. "Now go live. Really live." And Mia Campanostone, owner of a thriving community project, wife of a good man, granddaughter of a hero, intended to do exactly that. The broken coffee cup that had started everything sat on the mantel, carefully glued back together, its cracks filled with gold in the Japanese tradition of kintsugi, making broken things more beautiful for having been broken. Like Mia herself. Like Sebastian. Like the neighborhood they were healing, one coffee cup and one act of kindness at a time. The waitress who owned the building had become so much more. She'd become exactly who her grandmother always knew she could be. And this was only the beginning.
The end.
What a journey this has been. From broke waitress to property owner, from survival to purpose, from alone to surrounded by love. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded that their circumstances don't define their destiny. Drop a comment and tell me, what was your favorite moment? Did you guess the twists? And what do you think Mia and Sebastian's life looks like 5 years from now? I read every single comment, and your thoughts mean the world to me. Remember, you're stronger than you know, braver than you believe, and capable of building something beautiful even from broken pieces. Until the next story, keep fighting for what's right, keep choosing courage, and keep believing in the power of love and justice. This is your reminder that you matter. Your story matters. And like Mia, you have the power to change everything. See you in the next one, beautiful souls.